Deep flow states leave molecular imprints on your brain's code. We've always treated intense subjective experiences, the feeling of unity, the clarity of deep meditative state, as fleeting chemical accidents, like a flashbulb going off and then immediately fading back into darkness. But what if those moments are not just fires? What if they are highly organized data points that the body actively maintains? Think of your neural network like an immense library. Neurons fire, but non-coding RNA doesn't just regulate. It acts as a molecular bookmark. It stabilizes the exact configuration, the state vector, of those firing circuits so they can persist long after the stimulus is gone. We are finding that tiny transcripts stabilize complex subjective reality by managing how your genome expresses itself. This is memory storage. This is biological persistence of being. The real breakthrough here is that firing creates consciousness. It's figuring out how a fleeting experience actually sticks around. Most models treat subjective shifts like static electricity dissipating instantly. But researchers are finding something far more durable. They show that certain non-coding RNAs act as molecular architects, essentially providing the biological firmware update for your brain state. These specific transcripts help lock down and maintain complex circuit patterns long after you stop meditating or reaching a moment of flow. Think of them less like messengers and more like archival storage, making ephemeral moments into durable self-states. This shifts consciousness from an accidental spark to a maintained system property. Most neuroscience views consciousness as something that fades when the neurons stop firing, a mere byproduct of electrical activity. But what if those subjective experiences aren't just momentary flashes? What if they are being chemically anchored into your very self-structure? Imagine flow state not as passing through a feeling, but like engraving an idea onto glass. It stays there permanently. This persistence is governed by non-coding RNA molecules, small transcripts that act like architectural blueprints for memory itself. They don't change the DNA sequence, they organize how it works, which means something nobody expected for what we call personal identity and its ability to last beyond a single moment of awareness. Imagine your conscious peak experiences like hitting the perfect gear in an otherwise chaotic machine. Most models say that sensation fades instantly, just neuronal firing dying down. But what if those rare moments of deep flow or unified perception aren't fleeting? What if they leave a molecular signature behind? Non-coding RNAs act like persistent chemical notes, molecular state vectors, that encode the specific informational pattern of your experience right into the epigenetic structure itself. It means the architecture of that moment can actually inform future thought. This turns the genome from static blueprint to dynamic library of selfhood. But some researchers, arguing pure stochasticity remains king, claim these loops are just noise amplification. We need more data on how they truly stabilize reality in our cells. Imagine your fleeting moment of deep realization isn't just a chemical spike followed by decay. What if that internal state, that feeling of absolute coherence, is actually being recorded? Think of non-coding RNA molecules like molecular hard drives embedded in the neural architecture itself. They aren't just tiny regulators. They are actively preserving specific organizational patterns, keeping those complex experiences from dissolving. This means your subjective self can achieve a kind of informational persistence across time and space within the brain network. But here's the wild part. These regulatory loops don't work locally. A state shift in one area seems to possess an internal resonance capable of influencing distant neural hubs, a global broadcast signal, not just a localized whisper. What mechanism governs this far-reaching molecular dialogue? We always thought that when you achieved profound coherence, that feeling of perfect unity or deep flow, it was simply a temporary electrical storm inside your head. A brilliant burst of activity, then it faded away like smoke. But what if the experience wasn't just generated by firing neurons? What if those fleeting moments are actually being physically etched into the molecular structure of your brain itself? This isn't about chemical release. This is information persistence. Specific non-coding RNA molecules act like biological hard drives, encoding that subjective state, stabilizing it long after you stop thinking about it. If experience leaves a trace at the level of gene regulation, then what precisely defines permanence in consciousness? We were taught that consciousness was just electrical noise, a byproduct of synapses firing. A beautiful accident. But what if that's wrong? What if the moments of deep clarity, those perfect states of flow or transcendence you experience, are actually being preserved by molecular architecture within your cells? These tiny non-coding RNAs aren't just regulators. They act like biological state vectors, locking in subjective reality after the initial feeling has vanished. It's as though memory isn't stored only in protein patterns, but etched into the dynamic operating code itself. How can an ephemeral feeling become a durable part of who you are? The mechanism demands we redefine what persistence truly means within the self. And there is so much more to this stabilization loop than just plasticity alone. The truth is that your deepest subjective moments, that feeling of absolute coherence or flow, aren't just random electrical sparks fading away like candlelight. They are stabilized patterns. Think of consciousness not as a stream, but as data saved onto the most complex hard drive imaginable. These non-coding RNAs act as the molecular save files. They ensure that when you exit deep meditation, the informational resonance of that altered state remains physically etched into your brain's regulatory code. Your takeaway is this: recognize fleeting states for what they are, information to be preserved. The full research archive is at jmthomasofficial.com. The biggest realization here is that our subjective experience isn't a fleeting accident of electrical noise. It's an actively maintained molecular system state. Think of non-coding RNA like the operating code on a hard drive, not just the data itself. These regulators allow states like deep flow or unified awareness to be encoded and persist long after you step away from them. The actionable takeaway is this: instead of chasing momentary high points, your work should center on creating conditions for sustained internal coherence. That's where true persistence begins. If you want to see the full research archive at jmthomasofficial.com.